Some stories are so universal, so appealing across generations and demographics, and so timeless in their themes, characters, or plots, that they are often retold over and over again. One such entity is Alexandre Dumas's classic swashbuckler, The Three Musketeers. Now, I won't insult your intelligence by explaining the plot because, well, it's Three Musketeers. It's one of the granddaddies of modern adventure stories, and has often been mined by Hollywood and other media companies for big screen entertainment. The 1920s, 40s, 70s, 90s, and even the early 2010s all had their version of this story, featuring some of the big-name talent of their day with a price tag to match. But as with many often adapted properties, there are those smaller, more left-field projects that maybe are less well-known or well-regarded, perhaps even considered the black sheep of their respective franchise for having committed some transgression against the established source material. 2001's Musketeer is essentially yet another retelling of the classic story, but with a little twist. Not only does it center more squarely on hot-headed young D'Artagnan's quest for revenge, but also has all of its action set pieces choreographed by Hong Kong martial arts masters Jin Zhuang, giving us some massive sequences such as sword duels on the side of a tower or across various twisting and turning ladders. Mixing up the world of kung fu and swords? Alright, sounds like a silly but fun change-up. So, where do I start with this one? Well, first, most of the performances are flat as shot tires, with Justin Chambers giving really no charm or energy to what is meant to be a young and spirited D'Artagnan. He handles himself okay in the action, but nothing makes him really command the screen the way a swashbuckling lead should, or incur much sympathy given D'Artagnan's backstory. One of the bigger letdowns, however, is the normally terrific Stephen Rea as a seemingly always monotone and kinda bored Cardinal Richelieu. Stephen just looks completely disinterested in almost every scene he's in and gives no sense of power, menace, or authority to the Cardinal, which is kind of a problem considering he's the arch-villain of the story and one of the most famous figures in French history. I don't know what happened, but Rea just gives nothing to it. He just doesn't bring anything to the role. Not even the kind of enjoyable cheese that somebody like Tim Curry or Charlton Heston managed to do in their incarnations. Really, out of the cast, the only one who looks like he's having any sort of fun with the material is Tim Roth as the central villain and muscle for Richelieu, complete with eye patch and evil goatee to match. He's the right kind of slimy yet threatening for this role, and he almost salvages every scene he's in, considering that, well, Chambers is a plank of wood. Then again, who can blame them doing so poorly with this material? Gene Quintano, better known for his comedy work, creates a plot so ridiculously oversimplified, not just from the book, but other screen versions, yes, including the Disney one, that it just feels like an excuse to justify the overcomplicated action and stunts. Pretty much all the other cast members are so thin and devoid of personality that you can't get invested in their plight against whatever Richelieu is scheming, and by focusing mostly on D'Artagnan, the other three Musketeers are pretty much redundant in their own story, being little more than lifeless husks, without the witty repartee and banter as well as the all-for-one friendship that is the core of the Musketeers' story. They're all so bland that you can't honestly tell Athos, Porthos, and Aramis apart, and you'll quickly forget who they are anyway, which is nothing short of completely inexcusable in this kind of story. Yes, the production values effectively recreate 17th century France, and we do get some interesting kung fu swashbuckling hybrid set pieces as mentioned earlier that are shot and edited fairly well, even if it's not all that engaging thanks to a completely generic score from the otherwise talented David Arnold. But really, this is just a dull version of this story. The concept of swashbuckling and kung fu should at least make for some good, cheesy fun, and if the movie knows how to play it, that could be enough to forgive it for changing up stuff from the original story. But the movie takes itself so incredibly seriously and rarely cracks a joke or even seems to enjoy its own absurdity that it doesn't work. Quintano's script is basically a massive contradiction. It really oversimplifies and abridges the original story to allow for the goofy action to shine, but then it also wants to borrow some of the book's slightly darker, even more political drama-esque tone a lot of the time. It's a dreadful clash that wrecks the film's fun factor, and basically, on top of giving you no real characters to root for and no real reason to be invested, it dials back, if not kills, the film's enjoyability. In the end, this is the textbook definition of unnecessary, derivative, and generic, offering nothing new or interesting to Dumas's creations. Even the W.S. Anderson mess from 2011 at least had some steampunk thrown in as a distraction, and had a pretty good cast, honestly, and even the 90s Disney version kept the camaraderie of the Musketeers intact, as well as giving us the forever amazing Michael Wincott, and a rather amusing Oliver Platt and Tim Curry in the cast. Yes, it really boiled down the story, but at least it still felt on some level like a Musketeers adaptation. The once great Peter Hyams, the man responsible for the likes of The Relic, 2010 and Capricorn 1, firmly cemented his has-been status with this and another high-budget disaster, The Sound of Thunder, and it's truly a sad sight to behold because he probably could have done something incredible with this material, but there's just no passion in the finished work, and it comes across as one desperate gimmick.